whoever's watching this video. I have another little Bible study to share with you, and I have a really good word from the Lord that I feel like I have to get out there. So let's dig in. We're going to start with, this is Matthew 22. It's the parable of the wedding banquet. Of course, this is Jesus telling the people that he was preaching to this parable, and he always spoke in stories. So this is the parable of the wedding banquet. Okay, Matthew 22. Jesus spoke to them in parables, saying, "The kingdom of heaven is like a king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his servants to those who had been invited to the banquet to tell them to come, but they refused to come. Then he sent more servants and said, 'Tell those who've been invited, I've prepared the dinner. My oxen and my fattened cattle have been butchered. Everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet.'" I'll just pause and say, if anybody wants to invite me to a wedding, I love to go because the food is always amazing. Just a little side note there. All right, verse 5. "But they paid no attention, and they went off, one to his field and another to his business. The rest seized his servants, mistreated them, and killed them." So I want to stop right there for just a second. So the servants went out to those who had been invited to come, but the people who were invited refused. It was their choice. They refused it. And then in verse 5, they didn't pay attention to the invitation. Why? Because they were too busy. It says one was in his field, another went off to do his business. They were too busy and too caught up in what they were doing. And then in verse 6, where it says, "The rest seized his servants, mistreated them, and killed them." That kind of reminded me of all the missionaries all around the world who were seized and killed and tortured just for proclaiming the name of Jesus. So we are blessed that we are able to freely worship and freely talk about it here. All right, let's move down now to verse 8. This is Matthew 22, verse 8. "Then he said to his servants, 'The wedding banquet is ready, but those I invited, they didn't deserve to come. So go,'" this is verse 9, "'go to the street corners and invite to the banquet anyone you find.'" And so verse 9, "Go to the street corners, invite anyone." Well, that means anyone good, anyone bad, anyone, invite them. Okay. Verse 10. "So the servants went out into the streets and gathered all the people they could find, both good and bad. And the wedding hall was filled with guests." Now this is verse 11. "But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes." Verse 12. "Friend," he asked, "how did you get in here without wedding clothes?" The man was speechless. Verse 13, "The king told the attendants, 'Tie him hand and foot, throw him outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.' Verse 14, "For many are invited, but few are chosen." And I just made a little note in my Bible, few are chosen to stay. So again, this is an illustration of what the kingdom of heaven, Jesus was illustrating what it will be like. I want to go back to verse 13 where it says, "The king told the attendants, 'Tie him hand and foot, throw him outside into the darkness.'" Throw him out away from me, pretty much is what he was saying. The darkness is away from God because God is light and God is love. So just a little quick reference here. I hope you're able to follow along with me in your own Bible. Just a quick reference to Revelation, the last book of the Bible, for those that don't know, Revelation 21:23. This is talking about the very end of times. "The city has no need of sun or moon, for the glory of God illuminates the city, and the Lamb is its light." It brings tears to my eyes because I think about the warmth and the beauty of God and just everything light. Like when it's such a beautiful sunny day, how that sunshine feels and makes me feel so much better. I cannot imagine being tossed into the darkness away from God. And then one more reference, Revelation 21 verse 27 says, nothing evil will be allowed to enter, nor anyone who practices shameful idolatry and dishonesty, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. Those are the only ones who are getting into the kingdom of heaven. And so this is just a beautiful illustration. And again, the reason why I feel led to share this is because our time is running out. We don't know how much time we have. And so we really have to understand how we can be a part of this, how we can be a part of God and his light, okay? All right, so let's get back to Jesus's illustration, where at the very end, in verse 14, many are invited, but few are chosen. Chosen what? Chosen to enter into heaven and stay at the feast, because that man was there who didn't have on the proper wedding clothes and he got cast out, okay? So pretty much what that meant to me was every one of us is going to die. We're going to stand before God. But will you be wearing the right clothing? Now, obviously, it's not talking about clothes on the outside. This, again, Jesus talked in symbols. Everything, or not everything, but a lot of the things he did was through parables and symbols just to illustrate, okay? Well, those of you may already know this, but some of you may not. The church is often symbolized in the Bible as the bride of Christ, okay? Christ is our bridegroom. He gave up everything so that we can be presented to God as a pure and blameless and faultless, beautiful bride. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're a part of that. We're a part of that family and God's children. Okay. Another thought I had was think about it. Any weddings that you've been to. Okay, weddings are a huge deal. Some people spend thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars on these big weddings, or some people have smaller weddings, but they invite everyone that they love and they cherish dearly. You don't just show up looking all crazy like you just rolled out of bed with some sweatpants on, okay? You would not be wearing the right clothing to attend the wedding, okay? What do? We get dressed up, we put on our fancy clothes, we do our hair really pretty. So we are preparing for a wedding. But now, again, this wedding that he's talking about here is talking about heaven, okay? So how do we prepare? What kind of clothing should we be putting on to be ready for when Jesus comes back? Because, guys, I don't know if I'm the only one who's seeing this, but so much, especially with this pandemic, everything that's happening in this world around us, these are all signs. They're all the signs in the sky. It talks about the blood moon in the Bible and the solar eclipse and things like this. The signs are all around us. So we cannot continue to be asleep. So what kind of clothing do we need to put on? Well, I'll make another reference. Romans 13. Let me go back to that, forward to that actually. Romans 13:11. Let me find that. Okay, and the title of this chapter is Love, for the Day is Near. So it's a great illustration commanding us to love. All right, but we're going to read, it's Romans 13, go down to verse 11. Let me make sure. Yes, verse 11. Okay, and do this, understanding the present time. Excuse me. The hour has come for you to wake up from your slumber. A lot of times we are kind of just asleep and just caught up in our own daily lives. But it says the hour has come for you to wake up from your slumber, because our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed. The night is nearly over. The day is almost here. That's another illustration of the light and the dark, okay? There is no darkness in heaven with God. It is all light and all pure love and pure innocence, okay? So let us, this is continuing in verse 12. So let us put aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us behave decently as in the daytime, not in orgies and drunkenness and sexual immorality and debauchery, not in dissension and jealousy. Verse 14, rather, clothe yourselves with the Lord Jesus and do not think about how to gratify the desires of the sinful nature. Clothe yourself. That's like I've got to put on Jesus every single day, even though he lives in my heart and he's with me. I've got to consciously make a choice because he's never going to take away my free will. I still have a free will to go be wild and crazy all I want to, but I choose not to because that's the path of darkness, and I want to be on the path of light with God. I never want to be cast out to the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. That's horrible. I hate it when I am upset. I don't want to be like that for all of eternity. So clothe yourself with Jesus. Well, how? How do I clothe myself with Jesus? Okay, I'm going to turn back a page to Romans 12, verse 2. Romans 12, verse 2. It says, do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is good and pleasing and perfect will. It's a renewing of your mind. It's a day-by-day choice to put on Jesus and just be filled up with, it's that old thing, what would Jesus do? I mean, that there's really credit for that. Like, what would Jesus do in this situation? I still have a choice. Am I going to do the right thing? Am I going to do the wrong thing? Okay, now I want to go back a little bit and I'm almost done. I want to kind of wrap this up here. I now want to go back to Isaiah, back in the Old Testament. Isaiah, these are all prophecies of Jesus and the future, and they're just such good promises from God. Okay, Isaiah 51, and this is verse 6 through 8. Okay, Isaiah 51, 6 through 8. Lift up your eyes to the heavens. Look at the earth beneath. The heavens will vanish like smoke. The earth will wear out like a garment. There's that reference to clothing again. Its inhabitants die like flies. But my salvation will last forever. My righteousness will never fail. Hear me, you who know what is right, you people who have my law in your hearts. Do not fear the mocking of men or be terrified by their insults, for the moth will eat them up like a garment or clothing, and the worm will devour them like wool. But my righteousness will last forever and my salvation through all generations. So he keeps pointing to our outward stuff is going away. It's what is in your heart. What is the inside about? We want to have righteousness, and that is a huge, fancy religious word sometimes that some of you may not understand. Righteousness, all it means is desiring a relationship, a right standing with God, a relationship with him, okay? It simply means that I am choosing his love. I'm choosing to behave like Jesus modeled for me every single day. Do I still mess up? You bet you. But his grace is new every day, and I can have forgiveness for that. But it's a renewing, a daily renewing of my mind, choosing to clothe myself with Jesus. Now, let me show you this quick. Isaiah 61:10. Flip over Isaiah 61:10. Where is it? Here it is. This is another illustration of clothing that I like. Isaiah 61:10. I delight greatly in the Lord. My soul rejoices in my God. For he has clothed me with garments of salvation and draped me in a robe of righteousness. As a bridegroom adorns his head like a priest, and a bride adorns herself like jewels. Again, it's that wedding reference that Jesus is coming back. There's a lot more references to this as Christ being our husband. We are the bride of Christ as the church. You can look in 2 Corinthians 11. I won't read those to you, but you can reference those, 2 Corinthians 11. Also, Ephesians 5 reference Christ as our head, okay? So I want to tie this up with some amazing, something amazing that God shared with me. Before I do that, I want to put it to you real easy, like, okay? Jesus used the illustration of a wedding banquet, all right? I'd like to use a different illustration. I'd like to use it like, let's say a job interview, okay? Let's say many of us have been in job interviews before. There are lots of applicants, lots of people applying for the same job that you want, all right? Now, you go on the interview, the person likes you, they like all the other ones, but they decide, yeah, I'm going to choose you. I'm going to pick you. So you get the call, hey, we'd like to offer you this position. Will you take it? Will you accept it? So that's a perfect illustration. He's here asking you, inviting you, asking you to come to the wedding feast, pretty much begging you, come to the wedding feast. But then it's ultimately up to you. Will you accept the invitation? Will you take it? Okay? Just on a lower, not lower, that's not the correct word. Lower age is what I was going through. A lower age to reach out to those people. College applicants, those of you that are moving to your next chapter of your life, you have applied to all of these colleges. You've got all these college applications. Let's say you get 2 letters back. Both of those colleges, I don't know, University of Georgia, University of Alabama. Ooh, that's a big rivalry. Which one will you choose? It's up to you. Which path? You both got accepted into one of them, but the choice is ultimately up to you. And I think that is what this huge parable was really about, and especially the very end of it. Many are invited, but few are chosen to enter, because if you're not wearing the right clothing, now I don't mean this, I mean the clothing over your heart. If your heart is not righteous with God, you haven't accepted Him, then you're going to be cast out. You're going to be turned away, and you won't get to stay and eat the wedding cake. I love wedding cake. It's my favorite. Have I mentioned that before? Is anybody getting married out there that wants to invite me to their wedding? All right, last thing, I'm going to wrap this up, okay? This is my journal. I recommend that you journal, especially when you feel like the Lord is telling you something, when you feel like God is sharing something with you. Write it down. I've had dreams, I've had visions, I've had scriptures, I've had my brokenness, my healing. I can turn back over the last few years that I have been writing in this, and I can see how far God has taken me, and it is incredible. So as I was preparing this, which I wasn't preparing to do this video, it just kind of God laid it on me. So that's the reason I'm doing this. This is what I feel like He was speaking to me. The Holy Spirit will speak to you as well. If you'll just sit and be quiet and listen, He will speak to you as well. All right, here's what He wants you to know. I am waiting like a groom with open arms for all who hear my call. But few will make the choice to really give me their hearts. The heart is what has to be changed. It needs to be clothed in righteousness. I will do the work. This is Jesus talking right to you now, and to me too. I will do the work, but the initial choice of submission will always be up to that person. So He's not going to take away your free choice. So the choice is always there. Do not believe the lie that God is not with you. He is. You have to choose to accept him back. He wants you. He doesn't want any of his creation to suffer. You are his prized possession. You are his masterpiece. All of that is found right here. Everything that God says about you, the truth, is right here. Okay? Hopefully he'll lay some more of these and I can share some more videos. But for now, please make the choice to accept him. How? How do I accept him? Well, you just admit that you've done wrong. You admit that you're a sinner. You believe that Jesus did die for you and took the place. So now that he can stand there as your groom and you can be presented to God as a beautiful virgin bride, complete from head to toe, wearing the right clothing, the beautiful white wedding gown. Okay? And then after you accept it, then it's a daily walk to choose him. Choose him daily. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. Send me messages if you would like to discuss this further. I'm always here. It is my prayer for each one of you to stay safe, stay well. I love you all.